Hidden in this crevice under my desk is a boring family hatchback of a PC. It's a pretty bog standard, small form factor Dell Optiplex. This one a 5050 model from about 2017, sporting a trusty but somewhat uninspiring 7th gen Intel i5-7500. It's got just its factory standard 8 gigs of DDR4 with no dedicated graphics card, so it's hardly the Arnold Schwarzenegger of pre-builds. But this video is not about trolling or humiliating this PC. Quite the opposite, in fact. As in its defence, I've been using this machine reliably and enjoyably for 4 years now, and it's performed quite adequately, if not a little against its own will sometimes. Primarily, I've been using it for photo editing on Photoshop, a bit of editing of these masterpieces on YouTube for my few YouTube channels, using Adobe Premiere Rush. It's been doing okay in a sort of take your granny out to the garden centre and not the theme park kind of way. You know, treat it carefully, don't expect too much and you won't kill it. However, the constant lagginess and stuttering when working timelines does get a bit boring sometimes, so it's about time I gave this thing a shot of adrenaline straight into its frontal lobe. Looking at the performance in stock configuration, you can see here when I'm trying to render a short video of my DIY car and motoring channel, the system appears to be a bit bottlenecked in a few areas, particularly the GPU and memory usage. Without a separate GPU, this thing shares the same system memory, so with 8 gigs total, I'm essentially running, about 4 gigs for the CPU and 4 gigs for the graphics. So whilst it's clearly way below the recommended amount for fluid editing and rendering in 4K, it has been surprisingly manageable over the years, albeit with the sort of context of having very low expectations in the first place. However, a couple of recent head-on motorway crashes during editing some longer videos has pushed me into thinking about an upgrade for this middle-aged pensioner of a PC. And this here is the stuff that I'm hoping my dreams are made of. A 32GB 4-stick kit of Corsair Vengeance LPX, capable of running at 2933 MHz, albeit this 7th gen CPU will only max it out at about 2400. Bought second hand on eBay for 117 quid. It wasn't exactly cheap, but it was still 20 quid less than the retail, and it does give me enough change to buy a couple of Big Macs. Getting it into the machine, simple enough. Dells have blue levers and buttons everywhere guiding you through easily when getting the various cages and frames out of the way. Being a small form factor, I've gone with a low profile LPX DDR4 here, which, even though low profile, only just about squeezes into this case. Putting it back together again though, just as easy as taking it apart. In fact, it's so easy you could probably do it blindfolded. First off, I'm going to power up the flux capacitor and go back an hour or so in time from a time before the upgrade and run 2 benchmarks. First, I've ran PC Mark 10. Now, I don't use this thing for gaming, so this PC Mark test is perfect. It's all about production, publishing, editing and other things generally more boring than playing games. With the stock 8 gigs, it does get a fairly meaningless score of 2908. I've never ran this test before, so I've genuinely no idea whether that's good, bad or suicidally terrible. Next up, a more real-world test was in order, something that might actually give me a representative example of the kind of work I'm doing. So here I'm performing a simple render in 4K of a 57-second video. In this case, the life support Dell taking 3 minutes and 46 seconds to achieve climax. And swiftly moving back into the future, now sporting an unholy 32 gigs of brain power, the PC Mark test is run again, and so is the same render of the same 4K 57-second video. So let's have a look at these results. With the 8 gig PC Mark score of 2908 up on the screen, we can add in the 32 gig score, which came in at 3222. That's an improvement of about 11% or so. Genuinely no idea really what to make of that. Seems an 11% performance isn't huge when we have literally quadrupled the RAM, so let's run the rendering test to see what difference it makes there. Sticking up on screen the result of the 8 gig render, that's 226 seconds from start to finish, and then popping up the 32 gig result, and bingo! It's finished the full render in 2 minutes 27 seconds. That's 147 seconds, shaving a whopping 35% off the time. I am well chuffed with that. Given a typical one of my videos being, say, 15 minutes long, that should cut the rendering time down from about 50 minutes to about half an hour. A good 20 minute saving, during which time I can, I don't know, pick my backside or something. Not only that though, the whole smoothness and fluidity of editing the timelines improved massively, so overall that's just over 100 quid well spent in my book. I'm not yet done with this machine. It should go on performing perfectly fine for a little while yet, but of course I am inevitably going to get seduced by the power of Ryzen and Threadripper, so please do subscribe.